Hi, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Tree of Life. A pair of notebooks belonging to the famous naturalist Charles Darwin were recently handed over to Cambridge University. They vanished mysteriously 2 decades ago. The reason they are so valuable is that inside one of the notebooks is the famous sketch Darwin made depicting the Tree of Life. It was this tree, or at least his vision of the tree, which revolutionized the human understanding of the evolution of life on this planet. But where did the notebooks go? That's a question nobody has an answer to. But how they recovered them is quite strange. According to what the university said, the manuscripts were left outside the librarian's office on March 9, 2022. This spot was not covered by security cameras. They were stashed in a pink gift bag, and there was a small note inside wishing the university librarian a happy Easter. They originally went missing in 2001 after they were taken out of the archives to be photographed, but they never made it back into the archives. And after a bit of searching, it became clear they had been stolen. These books are so important that local police in England teamed up with Interpol and conducted an international manhunt for them. And even with the books discovered once again, the police are still trying to hunt down whoever took them and whoever left them so nonchalantly as an Easter present. What do you think happened to the manuscripts the last 20 years? Let me know in the comments below. Number 9. Mons Olympus. In October of 2020, the red planet Mars made its closest approach to planet Earth in 15 years. This happens when Earth is at its furthest point away from the Sun and Mars is at its closest point to the Sun. The planets were, at this time, only about 34.6 million miles from each other. You could see Mars plainly in the sky as a burning red dot. You could also see its surface with a standard telescope. No need for super advanced equipment. Maybe you even saw this for yourself in 2020. Let me know in the comments. Looking through the telescope, you would have been able to see Mons Olympus on Mars, the tallest volcano ever discovered in our solar system. It's difficult to see the actual mountain of the volcano, but with a telescope, when Mars is so close, you can see the white clouds of carbon dioxide smoldering around its caldera. Unfortunately, 2020 has come and gone, and you won't get another chance to see this incredible mountain of smoke and fire for another 13 years, in 2035, so mark your calendar. As for when Mons Olympus was first discovered, it's actually a pretty cool story. In 1971, NASA's Mariner 9 spacecraft went to orbit Mars, but they were having difficulty taking photographs because the entire planet was absorbed in a global dust storm. As the scientists waited for the dust to calm down, the first thing they saw was a mountain poking out above the clouds. They would later identify this mountain as the biggest volcano ever found. It's twice as tall as Mount Everest and has the surface area roughly of the state of Arizona. Number 8. Mummified in Oakland. In late March of 2022, construction workers in Oakland discovered a mummified body inside the Henry J. Kaiser Convention Center. What was a mummy doing in the walls of this historic California building? So far, authorities haven't been able to figure out who this person was or how they ended up trapped inside the walls. The discovery was made during renovations of the building, which is more than 100 years old and located right in the center of downtown Oakland. The mummified individual appears to be a man, and based on his state of decay, he's been in the walls for about 5 years. That's behind drywall, between 2 concrete pillars, and at the very top of the auditorium in a small cavity. Authorities don't believe this was the result of a homicide. Lieutenant Frederick Shavy said there was no trauma, no indication of foul play, and no marks to suggest his limbs had been tied, and no signs at all of any harm. Still, nobody can figure out how he got boarded up inside the actual skeleton of the building. The best theory the police have now is that he had accidentally gotten himself stuck in the extremely small nook between the pillars and behind the drywall. Then he suffocated to death and was never found. Number 7. The biggest comet ever. Not long ago, astronomers discovered one of the biggest comets ever and found out that it's heading straight towards us. The comet is, if not the biggest, then probably the second biggest ever identified. It's a huge rock 4 billion years old, hurtling towards our planet at 22,000 miles per hour. But don't be too scared, it won't actually hit us. It should miss Earth by 1 billion miles, making its closest approach in the year 2031. Assuming there is no cosmic wind that blows it 1 billion miles in our direction, we should escape impact. The icy space rock is over 80 miles across and about 100,000 times bigger than a normal comet. It's so big that scientists initially mistook it for a dwarf planet. It wasn't until the comet got a bit closer that they saw its glowing tail, a clear indication that it's an icy rock and not a tiny planet. Using the Hubble Space Telescope, scientists tried to learn more about its icy heart. They looked for the bright spot of light corresponding to the nucleus of the comet, then used a computer model to wipe the rest away. It's now the single largest nucleus ever detected by astronomers, and it's also incredibly dark. One of the members of the study, planetary science professor David Jewett, said the heart of the comet is blacker than coal. Number 6. Camel carvings. Something rather unusual was discovered in the desert of Saudi Arabia. A group of very old and almost invisible camel sculptures were found carved into rock faces in the middle of nowhere. A new investigation shows the camels are the oldest large-scale animal reliefs anywhere on the planet. They were originally discovered in 2018, but were made between 7,000 and 8,000 years ago. We know very little about the sculptures at this point. They are so old and so worn that they don't look much like camels anymore. The general shape of them is still there, but most of the sculptures have been heavily eroded. That's the kind of thing that will happen after thousands of years exposed to wind and rain and sun. Researchers also don't know who made these carvings. They look quite similar to the reliefs at the ancient city of Petra in Jordan, but are much older. They are older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids of Giza, and predate the domestication of camels in the Middle Eastern regions. The giant sculptures, which are basically like Mount Rushmore except camels, were carved into the rock even before any economic developments had been made in the region. Right now, it's a huge mystery. Nothing like them was made afterwards by later cultures. They are shockingly advanced for being so ancient and would have required scaffolding to be made. Plus, there is no trace of any ancient settlement near where the builders may have lived. Who carved out these giant camels when civilization was just beginning? And why? Number 5. Cold Neptune. Scientists have made a pretty interesting discovery involving Neptune. Astronomers studying the atmosphere of the planet found that its global temperature has been steadily dropping for the past 17 years. At the same time, its pole has been getting considerably warmer. Now, we obviously don't have a meteorological station on Neptune, but we can see how hot it is by using thermal images. The team of scientists took these images between 2003 and 2020. During that time, global temperature dropped about 46 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a pretty monumental drop, and would be enough to ravage all life on Earth. But what's really unexpected is that according to Michael Roman, an astronomer from the University of Leicester, they had originally thought temperatures would get warmer, not colder. That's because for the past 17 years, summer has been in full swing on Neptune's southern hemisphere. Exposed to the sun, the planet should be getting warmer. Each year on Neptune is 165 years on Earth. The ice planet is 2.78 million miles from the sun. It takes 40 years for a season to go by, with summer starting in 2005 and ending in 2045. The average temperature on Neptune is minus 364 degrees Fahrenheit. But in the last couple of years, in what is almost the middle of summer, the temperature increased from minus 186 degrees to minus 166 degrees. And nobody has any idea why. Number 4. The human hobbit. A human hobbit ancestor of modern humans may very well be hiding out in the jungles of Indonesia, according to a new and controversial claim. The hobbit is actually called Homo Floresiensis, and it lived from between 700,000 and 60,000 years ago on the island of Flores. This ancient human cousin stood 3 feet 6 inches tall. It had a very small brain, huge feet just like hobbits from the Shire, and nobody really knows where it came from. It evolved isolated from everyone else, then went extinct without a trace. It's one of the biggest mysteries in ancient human development. These days, Gregory Forth, a retired anthropologist from the University of Alberta in Canada, claims these hobbit-like creatures are still living on Flores today. He recently told Live Science that because we don't know exactly when the species went extinct, and because Flores is a big and mysterious place, some of them could still be alive. Other scientists have called the claim dramatic nonsense, and so far, no tiny ancient humans have been found. But Mr. Forth believes they could be soon. Number 3. Plutonian ice volcanoes. Pluto is covered in amazing ice volcanoes unlike anything else we have in our solar system. Unlike Mons Olympus on Mars, the volcanoes of Pluto spew out ice instead of lava. Scientists call them cryovolcanoes. And in 2015, when NASA's new Horizons Spacecraft flew past the planet, they focused on Wright Mons and Mons, two of the biggest ice volcanoes in the galaxy. Mons is the bigger of the two, standing 4.3 miles high and 140 miles wide. One of the lead researchers, Kelsey Singer, says there is nothing else in the solar system that has similar features to these gigantic cryovolcanoes. All across the icy terrain around the volcanoes, researchers discovered giant lumps of solid ice formed from the eruptions. But the texture of these eruptions is different from other cryovolcanoes on moons like Europa or Titan. There's something about Pluto's thin atmosphere, its ridiculously cold temperatures, and its very low gravity that makes it different. These combinations allow for a fluid, much like liquid water, to be sucked out of ice volcanoes. When it hits the air, the liquid boils and freezes at the exact same time. This creates a hot explosion of semi-liquid ice completely unique to Pluto. And as of right now, scientists are pretty shocked. Number 2. An alien megastructure. NASA's Kepler Space Telescope has the primary job of finding planets that orbit different stars. But why are we searching for exoplanets anyway? Finding planets in other solar systems helps us understand our own world. And what we've discovered so far is that our solar system is incredibly unique. The Kepler telescope is able to detect all kinds of other things as well. The telescope can find solar flares, star spots, and even artificial structures orbiting stars. By artificial structures, I mean anything from an alien satellite to an alien megastructure. If it was built by a sophisticated civilization and put into space, Kepler will likely be able to find it. The way Kepler identifies these exoplanets is by measuring the dimming of starlight. It can sense where the light dims, which tells it there's a planet there. Then, after a bit of investigation, Kepler can create a light curve by tracking the planet to get a good idea of its size and shape. 99% of these exoplanets are circular, just like all the planets in the Milky Way. But Kepler discovered something very unique among the stars in the direction of the constellation Cygnus. They were looking at a star when the light dimmed by 15% from a passing object. Then there was a sudden burst of light dimming where it went down 22%. Scientists say whatever the object was that passed in front of the star must have been enormous, and there were a lot of them. It doesn't seem to be a disk of dust, and there are no infrared signals. Right now, it looks like Kepler accidentally stumbled upon some kind of alien megastructure, something like an artificial planet stuck in the orbit of a star over 1.5 times the size of the Sun. Of course, we have no idea what it is yet. Number 1. Life-sized doll. Back on planet Earth, something strange was discovered out in the woods of Georgia. And trust me when I say strange is the only word to describe it. Georgia police rushed out into the deep forest south of Atlanta following the report of a deceased female. This was in February of 2022, with the callers saying they had discovered the dead woman face down on a hiking trail. The cops showed up, but didn't find a body. The person wasn't a person at all, but a life-sized female doll that had been dumped in the bush. The Jones County Sheriff's Office shared their story on Facebook, along with pictures of the plastic victim, who for some even weirder reason, they decided to name Selena. As silly as it may seem, it's understandable that the hiker thought he had come across a dead person. The doll was wearing real clothes, and it had been dumped in a bunch of bushes and covered in mud. She didn't immediately look like plastic, and it's not like the hiker reached out to check. The doll was even wearing a pair of white socks. Super creepy and bizarre. Thanks for watching. If you had the opportunity, would you take a trip to space? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!